Okay. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAT Chad podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We had so much fun on your podcast. I was like, oh my God, I
So
think that
much
was
fun.
the best interview I ever gave because you just brought out the best in me. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. It was so much fun.
So you're like 95 episodes into Courage to Change. The name of your podcast
Yes.
is Courage to Change.
Yes, we are. We started in 2018, no, 2019, and we're in season 2, and it has been really fun and honestly a labor of love. And we've just had more, honestly, we've had more content than we've been able to put out. So it's been a weird experience that way, but it's been really great. I have a
No,
wonderful
that's
team.
amazing. Yeah, no, you guys are doing a great job. I mean, it is a labor of love, right? Like you said,
Hmm.
the intentions are pure. You want to get the message out there. You want to help as many people as you can. And sometimes it's like, hello, is this thing on? It's like, is
Totally.
anybody?
I'm like, is anybody out there?
We
Hello,
were
hello.
joking
Yeah,
around about
totally.
that. Demi Lovato at the Grammys did that. Is
Anyone?
anybody listening?
No, I know. Isn't it funny? I feel like there's always a place in your life where you could take a song like that and cry and like listen to it and cry by yourself.
Yeah.
Or I can't be the only one that's done that.
No,
Um,
ma'am.
but yeah, it's totally like, is anyone out there? The only way so we get some people respond, which is cool. And
Yeah.
I've gone in and talked to a group of women who listened, who then wanted me to come talk in their group. So
Oh,
that was
very
cool.
cool.
And then from our downloads, I
Hmm.
mean, and like it shows where in the world they're downloading in places where like, I don't want to know how my message is being translated there, because
Isn't that
there's like
amazing?
places in rural China.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
No, I feel like it's probably just like like, I don't know. So I get the stats too. And I'm being downloaded. The podcast is being downloaded in 53 countries. And I'm like, all these tiny little places. I'm
mhm.
like, I just imagine that there's probably some like American traveler who's just trying to stay sober and listening to pod. I mean, that's what I imagine in my mind. I would be so surprised if there was like English speaking people in Uzbekistan who are trying to stay sober.
Maybe, I mean, maybe, yeah, it's probably expats, but
Yeah,
um, I don't know. It's just a wild experience. So it's been really fun.
it is really fun. And at the end of the day, it's like you just do what's on your heart and you put it out there and then let people will do with it what they want. Like once it's out in the
Hmm.
wild, you just never know.
Yep, yep, it's
So
so
that's
true.
super cool. Okay, so I'll be sure to leave a link to the Courage to Change podcast. So, and you have some other resources to share too. So you're actually, did I see the chief people officer of Lionrock? Is that, I love that.
Yes, yes, Chief. Yeah, I have designed all of our hiring, recruiting processes. So staffing the entire company from the beginning, which in the beginning was not a big job. And now it is a big job, which is a fun, weird experience in and of itself. But basically, I work on all of the recruiting, staffing, and then culture things, trying to create and maintain
Mm,
the culture of what we started, and making that a serious priority, because the three co-founders, we do not want to work at a company without that culture. And so that's a
yeah,
big piece of what I do and think about.
that's very cool. Do you want to describe a little bit about your company and the culture that
Sure.
you're working on?
So in 2010, my father's sister, died of lifelong opiate abuse.
Oh,
She had just multi-system failure. Her body gave out. She had been to tons of treatment centers, kind of similar to my story. And my dad and his business partner were working on some solar company. They are Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. I grew up in Silicon Valley,
yeah.
and um, and the short version is that I was on my way to law school. I was working at the public defender's office. I graduated from UCLA and wanted nothing to do with treatment or recovery. I was going to stay as far away because I started going to treatment when I was 15, and it had engulfed my entire life. And I had been to so many treatment centers and spent so much time in treatment, years. I was in treatment for more than 2 years total. And so I wanted nothing to do with this, right? I was going to make a name for myself and do something that didn't have to do with my using and recovery. So I started doing consulting work. They wanted, Peter and Ian wanted to do, wondered if video conference could be something that could reach people earlier in the process, because we were always working with high acuity in the residential space. And could we reach, the numbers show there are an incredible amount of people who need treatment, and a very small, I hesitate to give the numbers because I don't remember them off the top of my head, but the numbers are very small amount of people getting help and very large amount of people not getting help. And how could we reach those? So we started the first online addiction treatment program, outpatient, done entirely through video conference. So we were the first substance abuse telehealth company in 2010. So that was 10 years ago, and it was not something that people were open to, other than the people who really wanted help, and this was the only way they could or would get it. Most people, certainly people in the industry, were not open to it. And so the long and short of it is I joined the team, realizing this is where I was meant to be, that I didn't want to go to law school. And we have grown the company from a PowerPoint to, I think currently we're treating 1,000 clients with 50 different time tracks of groups and programs. Clients all over the world. We've treated clients all over the world, and we have therapists all over the world. And it's just a totally different, well over 100 employees. It's a totally different thing. And
wow.
So yeah, that was it's Lionrock Recovery is the name, and we have developed. We are now moving into developing and have developed a recovery community that offers free online support groups, meetings, useful information, and entertainment. So, and that is lionrock.life. And that is also where you can find links to all the podcasts and our free support groups that are 12-step and non-12-step.
That is so needed. And then COVID hits and everything goes online. So, wow. Talk about, and I know you had to hang in there through some tough times. I just love me a comeback story, right? It's like
Totally,
persistence.
totally.
And it's like
Totally.
you have such a story of persistence, and man, that's just true grit, right? So congratulations.
I am nothing if not relentless.
Relentless. I love it.
In many ways that's great, and in many ways, ask my husband, it's not always his favorite quality.
It's a double-edged sword for sure. Yeah, I totally relate to the relentlessness, and it can it has a dark side for sure.
Definitely.
But with great, like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've learned to harness your powers for good. So I just want to applaud you for all the good work that you're doing. It's so needed. So
thank you.
I'm excited but listen, we got to talk about this business of starting treatment at 15 years old, and then the fucking hell you put your parents through, I would imagine.
My poor parents. I'm still apologizing. And every few years, it's like a new profound understanding that I go back to them. And
well, you're a mom. You're a mom of twins. They're 3 years old, 3-year-old twin boys.
Yep,
Three and a
3.5-year-old
half. Oh
twin
my God,
boys.
they're adorable. I saw your pictures of them online. I was like, oh my God, they're so
Thank
cute.
you. Thank
But
you. It's
oh yeah, payback's a bitch.
payback is a payback is a bitch. Well, you want to hear relentless payback story. Here's a classic. So I, being Capricorn firstborn child, very relentless and, know what I want, whatever I put my mind to it. So my husband and I were dating for 6 years before he proposed, which I was
6 years.
not happy about. Or I'm sorry, it was 5 years and then 6 by the time we got married. And
Okay.
I had an entire plan of when I was going to get married, when I was going to get pregnant, when I was going to have kids, how many kids I was going to have them by. Like I had my life mapped out, and then I just needed to, add the dude. And so he totally fucked with my plan.
Damn
And
it.
my plan had been to have 2 children by the age of 30. And so I was very upset getting married at 28. And I, so when I got pregnant, there are no twins in my family. There are no twins in his family. Um,
They're
I
identical, right?
No, they're fraternal.
Oh, they are
Dropped,
fraternal?
yeah, I dropped 2 eggs.
Oh, you
Twins, no twins, no boys in my family, and and I was 29, so it wasn't an age related thing. So out of nowhere, and I gave birth to my twin boys a week after my 30th birthday.
Well, ask and you
So
shall receive.
yeah, so my dad is always like, yeah, you can try to take her off, you can try to take her out of her plan, but she'll find a way. I mean, just
That's amazing.
it's just so funny. So yeah, when we got the news that we were having twins, I told everybody that genetically I overdo everything, and now there's proof.
Yes, ma'am. Oh my gosh, overachiever. Well, that is amazing that you were actually able to pull that off, considering.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But let's talk about, Sarah, do you have alcoholism that runs in your family, or are you all of
Oh
it?
yeah.
Oh, there is.
No,
Okay.
oh yeah, there's alcoholism in my family. Well, my aunt
Oh,
was
right. Yeah.
opiate addict and alcoholic, and there's a lot of depression.
Mm.
There's a lot of in my family with my grandparents, there's a lot of like they quit drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, someone
Yeah.
quit drinking and then somehow no one ever talks about it again. So whatever that means.
Shame, shame.
But yeah, exactly. I don't think most people just quit drinking for no reason. My dad
Right.
once
Yeah.
told me a story that my grandfather like quit drinking when he, came to drunk driving him or something when he was a little kid. And I was like, yeah, that's alcoholism.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not trying to diagnose, but my family is already sensitive to all of my diagnoses. So,
Oh,
um,
goodness.
yeah, so we have a lot of alcoholism
Mhm.
and, mental health stuff in our family.
Yeah, that's fair. What I thought we would do is maybe, do you want to just share like your typical experience, strength, and hope kind of a thing? And then
Sure.
I'll pepper you with questions when you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you can, or interrupt me.
Interrupt you? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so I was born to New Englanders. My dad is from New York City. He is a New York Jew, and my mother was born in Providence, Rhode Island, where I was born, and she is a New England WASP. If you know the cultures, they're very different.
Meaning
But
they're like, I'll let you describe the wasp. I think I know what it means, but what does it mean to you?
so, for example, the way that the way that they show love is very, very different.
Mm.
The Jewish side of my family is very open and touchy, hugs and kisses and emotive, whereas the WASP side of the family is very reserved, not emotional, some amount of physical touch. So there, you know, the Jewish side of my family, we talked about issues. There was a lot, you know, sometimes too much, and and then the other side, they don't talk about anything. So my
Sweep that shit
parents,
under the rug type of stuff.
yeah, under the Costco rug. It's gone.
Should we define what WASP stands for? White
White and
Anglo-Saxon Princess, is it?
white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Oh, Protestant. I thought it was
Mhm.
princess this whole time.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, no.
The girls, like when they said, oh, she's very waspy, I was like, oh, she's a princess. Okay.
No,
Got it.
it's Protestant. So it comes
Protestant,
it
sorry.
mhm. It's basically as white as you get. It is European,
Okay.
Protestant, and just New England, which is very reserved. You know, my mom is 5'9", blonde, blue eyes. You know, it's just she's a, you know, a stereotype. So
She's a story.
the reason that that's even relevant here is that I grew up in a household where things were expressed and talked about in very different ways. And so I related more to, you know, the Jewish cultural side of the family. And I didn't think my mom loved me when I was a little kid because love was expressed differently and I didn't understand the different cultures. And, you know, no one, that wasn't a thing. So I experienced these two things. And as a kid, there was no process for me. And then you know, and then my dad being Jewish, so we moved to the Bay Area. We lived in Boston um, until I was 6.5 or 7, and we moved to the Bay Area when I was 7, and I went into first grade, and I was met with anti-Semitism. I didn't know anything about Judaism. I was baptized Episcopalian, so my dad being Jewish was the thing now, and I didn't know anything about it. So these cultural things, these things that separate us or separated me, or were confusing, or things I didn't understand, they were a big part of my life because I didn't get the, you know, the underpinnings of what was going on because it was very different. So growing up in a house like that, while they expressed a lot of love, it wasn't always in ways that I understood. There wasn't always that consistency. There was a very different ways of dealing with things. And for me, that not only was that hard, but I also exploited it, you know, to my benefit. But the point in telling you that is that I always felt different, you know, and it's the classic alcoholic story, is that I knew that I was different, that something was different about me. And when we moved from Boston to California, and I had this curly hair and I had a Boston accent, and I walked into a Catholic school, Sacred Heart School in Silicon Valley, where I ended up going to school for 8 years, no one would sit next to me because I had this accent, because I looked different, even though, you know, I mean, I don't look that different, but to them, I looked different. And so there was always this like internal struggle. And we lived in California, and my parents are very New England. So there was always like, I was becoming a Californian, and my parents almost disapproved it because of, but we lived in California. You know, there was a lot of, you know, undertones of things. I don't think any of that, or you know, I should say that I had sexual trauma at 5 from a neighbor. We lived on the Harvard Divinity School campus, and the pastor's son, if you can get any more stereotypical. And for me, I don't think that made me an alcoholic, but I do think it made me confused. And I think that confusion led to a lot of other things. I had my first drink when we moved to California, and I stole a beer and I drank it in the closet of the apartment we were renting when I was 7 years old. It took me a week to finish the beer, and we were waiting for our house to be ready. So we were living in this little apartment, and I knew that you weren't supposed to do it. I couldn't tell you what the motive other than that was. Like, I just knew that you weren't supposed to. And I would drink things like Robitussin, or, I always, incredible amounts of sugar. I mean, sugar really was my first drug. And I always wanted to feel differently than I felt. I did not feel good in my skin. I felt like I was born with my skin too tight. And I think some of that is genetic, some of that was environmental, some of it was trauma, it's all mixed in. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter, because I found alcohol and men and drugs that made me feel differently than I felt. And I was able to get into a lot of trouble quickly, because I was a 4.0 student. I was head of every club. I played all sports. I did all the things. And the message in my house was, if you do well, like if you have your shit together, then we're not gonna get into your business. Because that's how my parents were raised, and it worked okay for them. And so, so I hid behind those things, and, experimented with weed, cocaine, methamphetamine. I mean, there's very few drugs that I have not tried. And I was the kid, I was very motivated to do drugs. I went out and sought them. It wasn't like, I always listened to the DARE campaign where they're like, just say no. I'm like, no one was begging me to do drugs. Like, where are these people who are just like these guys in cloaks coming out and giving you drugs? Where are they? I am looking for them. I cannot find any of them. It's just like, absolutely never happened to me. Never, ever. No one ever was like, please do this drug. I was so about it. I was so about
so
that
funny.
life. So
You're like, where's all the free shit?
I mean, I found a bag of cocaine a few years ago in New York City on the ground, and I was like, a little late. I'm already sober. What is happening?
Party
Where
is
was this?
over.
Yeah, where was this years ago?
Yeah.
So I fell in love with cocaine and what cocaine did for me. And I had a really wealthy friend who was also addicted to cocaine, and we started doing over an 8-ball a day when we were 14, 15.
Your parents didn't notice that you were behaving
No,
strangely?
my parents absolutely knew that things were going downhill, but I was not a kid. You couldn't punish me. So unless you hit me, which my parents weren't about that, there was nothing you could do. So for example, when I was, I think 12, they tried to ground me. I said no. They said, and I discovered this thing that kids don't know. And I want to say, pray God, my kids never figured
don't
this
tell
out.
your kids.
Yeah. If you say no, it's pretty hard to make, like, unless you're going to beat them physically.
Right.
What are they going to do? Take your stuff? So I was like, great, take my stuff. I'm still not going to stay in this room. Okay. Are you going to physically hold me here? So they would take the door and I would just leave. And I would leave the house. And I researched and found that you could not legally lock a child in or out of the house. So so I knew legally that was, what was allowed. And I just refused to be parented. Refused.
Okay.
Was unwilling. And what that looked like, I would be in my bedroom when I was in high school, and my dad would come in and I'd light a cigarette and start smoking in the house. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you like the level. I mean, it's horrifying now, but I just was unwilling to cooperate and be parented. And what I fundamentally came to understand was the person who said no has all the power, that I had all the power, that they couldn't make me do anything. And that the fact that I was doing that completely disrupted the whole system.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have two, not unfortunately, but unfortunately for everyone, I have two younger sisters, one who's 2 years younger and one who's 5 years younger than me. And they, they suffered as a result of my behavior. And for that, I am, um, you know, definitely wish that I could change some of that. But I just was angry. And then when I was 16, so, another example. So my boyfriend, the guy who first put a needle in my arm when I was 15, he was 14 years older than me. And I, it got to the point with my parents and who knew him. And it got to the point with my parents where they let him move in because they were so terrified that I wouldn't come home at night. And the only way that they knew that I would come home at night is if he was in the house.
Wow.
And
Your
so
parents must have
they
been
were,
terrified. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
So they were so afraid that I was going to die every single night. And they didn't even know I was shooting heroin yet. That because I would just leave if there was an altercation, like I would just leave. And I created a network of resources outside of my family, and that allowed me to just leave. I'm in business school right now, and I'm taking a negotiation class. And like this was stuff, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, you're like you walk away. And I fundamentally understood that if you have nothing they can take from you, if you don't comply, there's nothing they can do.
right.
And while that was effective in terms of letting me do these crazy things, it destroyed the relationship, and it made it so that I spiraled down so fast, right? So I got sober when I was 19, and even that is late in the game because I was, in treatment for 2 years. So, to wrap up this piece, which is, I started shooting heroin and everything that comes along with that. And I was living with my boyfriend in East Palo Alto. He had an apartment there, and we had just robbed a computer store, and we were doing all sorts of, drug related things. And we got in a fight. He left the house, and I had a broken foot that I had been living with for 3 months that I hadn't taken to the doctor. So I'm limping around. My drug dealer asked me if I was okay, like was concerned about my well-being, which was what point where I sort of had this look with him like, so you're not really concerned about my well-being, let's be honest. But so this broken foot wasn't treating that, whatever. So was in this house, and the police come in, I'm the only one there, and they arrest me, and a long road of the legal system proceed. I became a ward of the state of California at 16, and my parents illegally had me taken by force to a wilderness program where I arrived with my hair falling out at 16, with my hair falling out, completely strung out with a broken foot, and turned out I was pregnant. So that was how I arrived to wilderness.
Oh my goodness.
And I went through a series of treatment centers, different treatment centers, a lockdown in Utah for 10 months, which was very traumatic. And then I went to another treatment center for 10 months. So I ended up going to about 8 different programs. And I got out of programs by the time I was 18, and then tried the great experiment of I can drink, but I'm not going to do drugs. I'm a drug addict, but I'm not an alcoholic. And that landed me. So that worked for a few months, not really. And I was living in Prescott, Arizona, and I ended up in Phoenix. I drove my car down to Phoenix and went into a trailer park and started knocking on all the doors and asking for heroin, if anyone had heroin, because I didn't know where to find it. And I found a trailer that had it, and they all had rusty, dirty rigs, and there was no place for me to go to get clean ones. So I rinsed them out with Clorox from under the trailer, in bathroom. And I tried to do all these little shots in my arms so that I wouldn't overdose. And the result of that was that I infected all the veins in my arms. So my bottom, if you will, was that I ended up 100 miles away from that trailer park. Don't know where my car was, with two guys who had my drugs. My arms were stuck out in front of me and I could not move them because I was in so much pain. And I was begging for these people to give me drugs because I had been rendered incapable of actually using. And this was in my pursuit of, I can drink but not do drugs. And my mom came and visited me in the hospital, which I ended up in the hospital, and she asked me if I was going to make her bury me. And I got sober at 19. My sobriety date is January 7th, 2006. And it's been a crazy, wild journey, getting sober at 19 and being sober, going to college sober, getting married sober, having children sober. And it's been an amazing journey. And most of it is heavily rooted in Alcoholics Anonymous for me.
That's amazing. Oh my God. I have so many questions.
Give me your questions. I got it.
You're like, go. Wow. I mean, that is incredible. Let's face it, you're super lucky. I mean, how many times have we heard about, you spend any amount of time in the recovery communities and then you hear about moms who've lost their children. I think in 2017, there were like 70,000 deaths, opiate related deaths, just opiates, 70,000,
It's really, I didn't mention this, but on May 17th of 2004, my dad found me blue from a heroin overdose in my childhood bedroom. There was he just happened to come into the room because I had an appointment. He would have never come in the room otherwise. And I was home between treatment centers, the only time I was ever home between treatment centers. And they cut off my sweatshirt and did CPR and used the paramedics had Narcan. And it saved my life. Yeah. And otherwise I would not have been, I would not have made it. And so, and that experiment, I actually talked about this, I did on Overdose Awareness Day. That experiment, I was drinking and I blacked out and apparently went and I have zero recollection. I don't even know how I knew where to get it at that point because I had been gone so long. I came out of an alcohol blackout having had a heroin overdose. Like, don't know what happened in between, just know that they found me with a bungee cord around my arm and a syringe on the ground, and I had overdosed. So, I am very passionate about the fact that, whatever affects you from the neck up, if you are seeking to feel differently than you feel, don't worry about drug of choice, because it's a little game we play with ourselves. Most of us, are there some people that can do it? Probably. But that's a risk you have to take. Are you going to be in that? Are you going to be in that cohort? And if you're not, the price to pay is quite high.
Yeah. I remember when I first got sober, they said, if you're sober long enough, you'll go to a lot of funerals. I've been sober a long time and I've been to a lot of funerals for a variety of reasons. The price tag of that experiment is typically just so high. It's just not worth it. But we do have to answer the question, am I powerless over this too? Right. And that was, a question that it sounds like they say that in the 12-step rooms that you have to concede to your innermost self that you are completely powerless. And in my mind, it doesn't matter what the addiction is. It all serves the same purpose, which is to distract from our pain. And if we go back to, 5 years old, I remember we were talking before about, that situation with the pastor's son and all the things that happened to you during that, having to recant. Didn't you say you had to recant the story? Like you told, and then you had to recant.
Yeah. So This happened in Boston, and then I didn't tell anyone. I from what I remember, which is
You were young.
getting to be less and less, unfortunately,
Yeah.
or fortunately, he there was some threat or something not to tell, but I was, I don't remember what that was about. But so when we moved to California, I thought that I had seen him. And so I told my babysitter, who I confided in, and my babysitter convinced me to tell my parents. And my dad told me to tell the school therapist, um, who then proceeded to tell many parents and people at the school.
That is
It was
outrageous.
yes, it's yeah, that's definitely it's like a resentment that kind of comes and goes. It's light, but I think it was still there. But anyhow, it is what, and so then it was a long game of telephone. It got to the principals that um that me and my sisters were in danger, and CPS was going to be called. And so ultimately I was told that if I did not recant what I had told the therapist, that my sisters would go to a foster care.
Foster care. Yeah.
And so I was marched in there. I was 9 years old, and marched into the the male principal's office, and
Oh,
I recanted. And that, I think for me, that is probably the biggest trauma in my entire life. And I mean, and I could tell you a gazillion stories of crazy things that had happened while I was doing, great drugs and what have you.
do you feel like that
But
was like the first? I mean, there's the incident of the abuse at 5, but do you feel like the trauma at 9 was like the first real betrayal, or you know what I'm saying?
yes, so you remember I was telling you I refused to be parented.
Yeah.
At that moment, I'll never forget this, because I remember very clearly thinking to myself, oh, I don't have parents, which is a weird thing to think. Obviously, I have parents who love me very much. They were working with the tools they had at the time, which I get. And they very much regret what happened. They were trying to make incredibly difficult decisions with very little time and new knowledge to them, and no experience with this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it didn't go well. And so for me, it ended my feeling of
A trust or
trust or authority. Like, it just ended their authority for me. It made it like they were roommates who loved it, like the relationship, the
right.
foundation of the relationship changed for me. I
Right.
I I really understood somewhere that I was on my own, and that changed who I was in terms
Yes.
of how I interacted with my parents. And so the crazy stuff at home, like the absolute outrageous, unwilling, like, who is this kid? That's a kid who was not afraid of anything her parents could or could not do or give her, anything. And I knew that if I had nothing, if I didn't care about anything that they took, there was nothing to do. There's no way to parent me. There's no way to stop me. And a lot of that came from, this rage about
Rage.
being, yeah,
Rage. Yeah.
about being betrayed. And I had a lot of rage. I had one of the, I was in a family week, and oh, it was just like my heart. Um, and we were doing some family work and amends, and I one of my amends, and my, how I was going to make up that amends, was I promised to never lay a hand on any of my family members ever again. And I remember thinking to myself, I think I was 17 at that time, like, that's the type of thing you say in kindergarten. Like, that's not the type of thing that, like, I'll never lay another hand on you. But that, I was filled with so much rage, and rage is heavy. I remember when it lifted early between 18 and 19, and it
Mm.
lifted. And I remember that because the rage was tight and made me like physically defensive and aggressive. And um, I remember that feeling going away. And it's funny, I don't know what it would take for that feeling to come back. It hasn't in so long, but the fact that it was such a physical manifestation for me, and having to work through that. And I did ultimately do the work to work through that.
What was it that what preceded the rage lifting? Like, how did you get rid of it? Like, how did it lift?
Oh, God, I wish I remembered. I think really what I can say during that time, what happened was that I took responsibility, and
Mm.
I really looked at the facts, because in my case, and this is just my story, it was easy to see that my parents love me to death, and that their desire was not to hurt me. There was no value for them in that. There was no, they didn't
Yeah,
get anything out of that. And so I was able to really see that they fucked up. They fucked up,
they're just
and
human.
they're just human. And I was able to put myself in their shoes, as much as I could at the time. And
Yeah, no, that's good.
I was able to see that my resentments were me taking poison and waiting for them to die. And it was
Yeah.
just, and I was miserable, just miserable. My life, I was constantly being caged, constantly. I went from program to program. I was in a year-long lockdown, and it was miserable. And I counted, I can't tell you how much of my teen years were spent counting down the days to my 18th birthday. And
Wow.
I'll never forget waking up on my 18th birthday in treatment, and the cake that my friends hobbled together, and thinking, I have agency for the first time in my life.
Mm.
I could leave. And I didn't have that. I was in hospitals, I was in institutions, constantly, because my disease, that's where my disease takes me, and it takes me there really fast. So I think that just feeling like having some responsibility, some sense of the fact that I was struggling with addiction, starting to understand how addiction works in the brain, what was going on. Like, I wasn't insane. I had this specific problem, and I could do these specific things to get better. So all of that, I think, allowed the rage to kind of lift piece by piece, until I just remember, there was a situation that would have normally caused that rage, and it just wasn't there. I just
We're
couldn't
all
get worked
done.
up enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard, I don't know if you're familiar with Tara Brach. She's a Buddhist meditation therapist, teacher. Oh my God, she's magical. If you haven't been introduced to her
Tara
yet, you
Brach.
would love her. But I
Okay.
was listening, she wrote two books, Radical Compassion and Radical Acceptance. And I
I've heard
can't
of Brach.
remember,
Yep.
yeah, so good. So good. But she said something that I had never heard in 26 years of recovery, which was that anger is a sign of an unmet need. And when you were talking about this little girl who's just so full of rage, what was it at 9 years old that you needed that you didn't get?
um, I laugh because I think it's a long list, but the I needed someone to believe me. I think
Oh,
that was the piece for me. No one was going to change what happened. No one, that wasn't going to happen. Whether I got support or not, it was a complicated situation. I wasn't violent. So, I was very confusing. Um, I needed to know that if I said that something had happened, that I'd be believed. And there's something, particularly around trauma or abuse, there is something about not being believed about about you come out and you say this thing that you haven't been telling anyone, that not convenient for anyone, that you don't want to talk about, that you're starting to that's the other thing. When you're abused at 5, you don't understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
As I got older, the pieces started coming together, right? And the memories started coming together. So here that's a complicated thing, to have something happen and have no understanding, and then piece the understanding together. And also I hit puberty very, very young, very, very young. And so started growing pubic hair when I was like 7 years old. So
that is young.
they thought about doing hormone shots to slow my progression down, but didn't. So it was like, I was a mess. And
Lots of hormones on top of, I mean, what
yeah,
you were describing to when you were talking about that, what came up for me was just like the invalidation, like
yeah,
invalidating you.
yep, yep.
And yeah, no wonder you were
Yeah,
enraged.
and also for me, a big coping mechanism is disassociation. Huge coping,
Disassociation.
because I had to stay in that school. That happened in 3rd grade. I graduated from that school in 8th grade.
Oh my God.
So all the parents that knew, all the teachers. I dated a guy who lived in my neighborhood when I was in 8th grade, and he was a freshman at local high school, and his mother was best friends with a 1st grade teacher at my school, and she told the mother of the guy I was dating that I had been abused as a kid, and the mother made him break up with me because of it when I was in 8th grade. Yeah, real nice. But it was like, I'm that girl, right? I'm that kid, and then I'm hitting puberty, and then I'm, rebelling, and then I'm a woman at 13. I mean, fully. I was, these pictures of me, it's like, no wonder. It was always
Yeah.
going to be a complete shit show. And I needed my parents to show up for me and believe. And part of that is believing what I was saying.
Right. Yeah. My goodness. Well, no wonder. No
But
wonder.
you know what? I don't think that's what makes me an alcoholic.
Well,
I
sure as
don't.
shit didn't help. I
Oh no,
mean,
it did not help.
don't you think that a lot of, I mean, in my experience, a lot of addiction and alcoholism and all that stuff is around medicating feelings. And you had described mental illness in your family, as well as like, the waspy mom who may not know how to cope with feelings. Like if you don't have them or you're
Yeah.
repressed, then you don't know how to manage what I would consider to be huge feelings like trauma and invalidation and rage. I mean, you're talking about really powerful emotions. So I can't imagine she had any kind of coping skills to share with you.
Yeah, no. My dad had some. Hers not so much. It's I should say her transformation since all of this has been amazing. She's, one of my
Yes.
best friends, and she's come so far.
Yeah.
She was just working with what she had.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see that too. It's amazing for her for us to have conversations of what I interpreted. And I think about that with my kids too, situations that I interpreted. My parents would, we would suddenly, need a budget for something. And I would interpret that as we were poor and we were going to lose the house. And so conversations where there was like conversation about a budget or something, and sticking to a budget, to me, that's what I interpreted. So I think a lot about how, I have 2 younger sisters, they interpreted things differently. And
Yeah.
I think part of how I interpret things is part of my alcoholism,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I don't know, it's chicken and egg. But I from day one, I was, I overdo everything, and I'm too much for everyone, right? Like I'm too much for the people at school. I'm too much. Like it's just, I have my personality, my being, my belief. I'm just too intense. And there was a lot, my drugs of choice, my ultimate drugs of choice, alcohol and heroin, like that made me a small person, a quiet
Right.
person. It
Yeah.
put me to sleep. I was not, I did a lot of meth, but I don't actually like it, which gives you an idea of
I
my
get
addiction.
it.
I'm like, why am I doing this? I hate this stuff. But but you know, I was not interested in being up all the time and being awake and being aware and engaging like that. I wanted nothing to do with that. I wanted to be nodding off and asleep. I
Yeah.
wanted to be small.
Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb. That was like my anthem.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to
totally.
be, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I just didn't want to feel any of it. So I totally get it. So what happened? So you said that you ultimately took responsibility and you were able to empathize, is kind of what I was hearing, that you were able to empathize with your parents. And it sounds like you just got sick and tired being sick and tired, and but more along the lines of tired of being angry. Like,
Yes,
that's exhausting.
it was exhausting. And you know, what's funny is that that happened before I actually got sober. So I still ended up drinking after that, you know, kind of catharsis, but
Yeah.
it was a very pivotal part of my recovery. My dad says, my dad says that one day I said to him when I was 17, um, Dad, you may have been the worst parents of all time, but me hurting myself every day, this is some form of it, me hurting myself every day to get back at you is, you know, something to the effect of like, is not helping anyone. And so I'm going to take responsibility for my life. I have zero recollection of this conversation, but that's the
Interesting.
story. My dad says that I basically was like, you know, this is ridiculous. Like, what am I doing? And I think the fact that I constantly was put away, like literally physically put into programs and institutions, that loss of agency over and over again and for long stretches of time. On the one hand, I'm really lucky that my family was able to provide, to pay for treatment, and that I was able to have the opportunity to do some of that work. And on the other side of that coin was, um, just a lot of a big holding pattern for me, just holding me somewhere so that I wouldn't hurt myself.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but that wasn't that a lot of that wasn't growth in a good way.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. Um, I hesitate to ask, but you mentioned, showing up at 16 with a broken foot and pregnant, and you had, your hair was falling out and all that. Were you, what happened to that pregnancy? Did they make you terminate that pregnancy, or did you lose it, or what happened?
So it was kind of a combination of things. So I showed up, I broke my foot at a concert in a beer garden and just like never got, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I think the fact that I was shooting a painkiller helped.
Yeah.
But so I arrived there, could just absolutely a disaster. And then this happens. And my poor parents, I was heinous when they took me out, when they convinced me to sleep. I wasn't living at home. They convinced me to sleep at home. And then they had the people come, and I was so strung out, and I had this broken foot. So I wasn't going anywhere. Like there was no running. There was no like great
You couldn't get
plan.
away.
No. And I knew it too. I knew it. I just said to them, I go, if you let me smoke, I'll cooperate. So, they gave me a pack of cigarettes, and I was like, whatever, I'm so screwed here. And I was heinous. I wrote a letter that my dad still has, if you can even call it that. Just horrible. I spit in his face, just really awful. As
Well,
I was
Jekyll and
leaving.
Hyde. I mean, there's a reason drugs are
Yeah.
illegal. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, the way I do them, yes. And I was super strung out, and I was pregnant. And the thing about the pregnancy was, I thought the morning sickness was dope sickness. So I was
Oh,
using copious amounts of chemicals to try to feel better, because I
yeah.
didn't know what was going on. And so the pregnancy probably wasn't viable. I don't really remember what happened. I was complicit in it, but we went to a hospital in Utah. I was in Salt Lake City, and they make you watch these horrible videos.
Oh,
And I was just like, already such a like, what is happening? But the story. So when they pick you up, when your parents pay to have these people come get you and take you to wilderness, they're told, yes, your loved one is going to be livid and they're going to be pissed and they're going to say things and blah, 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 blah. They're going to fight you. But after the 6 weeks, they will have detox. We will have worked with them. That's when you'll come out and your experience with them will be a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
So just hang on and withstand the pissed offness of having people come, take you out of your house. It'll get better. Because I had a broken foot and was pregnant, my mom had to pick me up 2 days after this.
Oh my God.
She had to come and stay in a hotel room with me I could not manage to not complicate a situation. Like even complicated situations, I managed to complicate. Right. And so I lost that pregnancy, which as someone who has kids, that I understand, how serious that is. And on the other hand, I'm so grateful because the person that, my boyfriend at the time was, super, super abusive narcissist and, unwell, and being tied to that person would have been, a real barrier to my recovery. Yeah. And also I was a 16-year-old strung out girl. So that was,
no, I mean, it happens all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And, it's just one of those things that's it's a terribly painful, difficult situation. And, so the reason I asked about that is because, I feel like it happens to so many women. It happens to so many women. And, that's definitely something, we all, have to forgive ourselves for all kinds of things. And, that's just a terrible situation to have gone through. And
and I totally, just to say, like, I totally get people's opinions that or people who've done something different, or people who have opinions about that. I get the judgment. I understand.
I don't even have an opinion, just so you know. Like,
no, yeah, I just mean for your listeners, like,
if
that sounds completely horrible to you, I get it. Like, if you think that's monstrous or that's a monstrous decision, I get it. I totally get it. And it's a horrible situation to be in, but, we make the decisions at the time with the information that we have. And, it was not a safe situation for any person or child, and it would have not helped.
Yeah, I totally get it. I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
In that situation. I think that's totally understandable. Well, let's shift gears just a little bit because, I mean, all that you've described is so intense, and it's a miracle. It's a miracle that we're talking, and your
my story exhausts me.
Well, I don't feel exhausted by it, but it just is a miracle that you have come so far, right? And that's what I love about hearing people's recovery stories, is that they say that no matter how far the scale you have gone, your experience will benefit others. You are now uniquely qualified to help somebody who's been in that situation. Because from my experience, it's the love and the understanding and the compassion and the empathy that helps people heal from that, right? We can't go back and change the past, but we can absolutely, change our future, right? And lift those, lift others up who have been through something similar, right? And so that's Absolutely. What you have done with your life, which is so amazing. I know that you're helping, literally thousands of people, through your through Lionrock and through your podcast and all your other efforts. I know you have like a really exciting event coming up. That's a super fun. Okay, I'm a huge Gabby Bernstein fan. I love me some Danny Trejo. And Jodie Sweetin, how adorable is she? And so you have this event coming up. Do you want to talk a little bit about the event and what the purpose is and how it helps people?
Yes, absolutely. So it's called, I have a note, it's a 3-part online discussion series. So I've already done 2 panels that were published with influencers, and then the end was the celebrity. And it's called Getting Clean and Staying Connected. And I'm so excited and amazed that we were able to pull this off.
It is pretty amazing.
I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I did not expect it to have these awesome people. I'm a huge Gabby Bernstein fan. So I'm going to try not to fangirl all over her.
I know. Yeah.
So, cause that's not a cute look.
I know you're trying to be cool and maintain and be
I'm going to be cool.
Totally.
And
on the inside, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's Gabby.
Totally. I'm going to have to practice in the mirror. So
can I just tell you, I did meet her in person once and totally fangirled out on her, and I don't even feel bad about it.
Sometimes you just have to. You know, what's funny is, I lived in LA and now I live in Orange County. And so, I've been around, and plus in the program, been around plenty of people who have some sort of fame or status. And I fangirl over the funniest, I fangirl over the strangest, like if I met Stephen Colbert or was interviewed by Stephen Colbert, I would fall down. I would hit, my face would hit the ground. Like I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
You would need a minute.
I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I literally, I would watch the Colbert Report, and I would tell my husband, like, I think he's the sexiest man I've ever seen. Like, I don't know. I just like when someone's brain and like personality is so attractive that they're attractive.
Yeah. Love is blind, girlfriend. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Exactly. My husband knows that if, Stephen Colbert gets divorced.
You got the hall pass for Stephen Colbert? Not Brad Pitt, Stephen Colbert.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I have the weirdest, like, I fangirl over some, like, the weirdest.
Who else you got? Who else you got in your weird hall pass category?
Weird hall pass category.
I mean, that's pretty funny.
God, who else? Well, okay, so like young Sean Connery, but and when I say young, I mean like 50s.
That's hilarious.
But I have a thing for the older guys. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about it in a while, funny. But the only one I thought about was Stephen Colbert, just forever. Just like, Colbert. I love you so much.
He's amazing. I love him. Well, you'll have to, hopefully you'll run into him. Okay. So, but in LA and everything, you've run into some people, but so.
Yeah. Like I'll run into, I've met people, who have real fame, and I'm very impressed by their talent and whatever, but I don't get that like,
you don't lose your shit.
I don't, I've been, particularly living in LA, you have to like, it's not cool. You are not cool if you do something weird. If you fangirl, but just.
So you're gonna have to hold it together in front of Gabby.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so cute. I love her. She's great. Well, I'm so excited for you. That sounds like a great panel. When is that happening?
So that's on National Online Recovery Day, which is National Online Recovery Day, which is September 22nd.
That's right. I was like, we need to get this podcast done before so we can promote.
Yep. So that September 22nd, it will be live 2 p.m. Pacific time.
2 p.m. PST. I will definitely put all this. You'll send me a link. I'll put in the show notes so that everybody, and I'll definitely put it on the podcast and all these other areas. That'll be really fun. I'm super excited for you for that.
Thank you.
So I thought we might wrap up with, this is my list of
your wrap up questions. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Because I could talk to you forever. Seriously.
I know.
I had so much fun on your podcast. I can't wait for that to come out. I told somebody, I was like, oh my God, I think I just gave the best interview. Like Ashley brought out the best of me. I can't wait for this podcast.
I love it.
So my girls are like, when is this thing happening? Okay. So let's do the lightning round questions.
Ready.
Are you ready? Okay. So favorite Quitlet books, what favorite, recovery books?
Favorite recovery books.
They don't necessarily have to be recovery, but like personal growth or things that have helped you get sober.
Okay, so things that help. So I love all of Gabby Bernstein's
And
book.
super
Um,
attractor.
yeah, Super Attractor.
May Cause
Um,
Miracles.
yeah, yep, I
Universe has
love.
your back. I am
Yep,
familiar.
Judgment Detox. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
Judgment Detox. I didn't actually read it. I had her sign it, but I didn't read it.
so I'm actually kind of like a neuroscience nerd,
Me
which
too.
okay, so there's a couple books. The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
It's a really fantastic book. Comes with a workshop, a workbook.
Uh-huh.
Um, there was a really Patrick Carnes wrote a book, Out of the Shadows, about sex addiction that was really helpful for me in my early 20s in recovery. Um, and
You did
Melody.
mention in the very beginning, and I forgot to ask you about that. You did mention that men were one of the things that I think you and I had so many things in common, using men to
Yeah.
fill the void, shall we say, of missing
Yep.
feelings. I meant,
Yeah, the feelings, right,
and
exactly.
here
Yes.
in your
Yes.
heart.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I meant.
I definitely, I definitely, that was definitely part of like making myself feel better. There's no question about that.
Using
And
men.
my
It's
and my,
because
and
they're
my
so
boyfriend
easy.
and my boyfriends and the guys that I dated were usually 15 to 20 years older than me. My husband is the youngest guy I've ever dated. He's 4 years older than I am.
I am familiar. I'm actually 2 years older than my husband, that's how
Wow.
far the other way I
That's
went.
how, yeah, that's your recovery going.
Going the other way. Yeah, I figure he's probably, yeah. Well, women years are different, right? He's
Yeah,
probably like 10 years younger than me in woman years.
women years. I swear. Oh, it's a
That is like,
curse.
okay, so the Patrick Carnes, Out of the Shadows, that was uh, sexuality related, or
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Um, so yeah,
Women
so
do
I,
not
I
talk about that enough, I don't think. Do you? We don't really talk about sex all that much.
we no, we don't. I think we go between sex and love addiction, and it flip flops, right? You can be
Yeah.
in one, and then and if you're a dissociator like I am, where you can literally have no feelings, like I can. Sometimes when I do feelings work, I have to ask myself, if I were having a feeling, what would it be? Because I have to think the feeling, and
Oh,
then try.
interesting.
Yeah, so like so being a woman who can like completely turn off any kind of feelings, that was useful for dating, not so useful
So,
for
yes,
spiritual growth.
yeah, it's a survival mechanism, right? But
Yeah,
then we
yeah,
have to
yeah,
learn to let go of our survival tools.
yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, I will definitely leave that. I haven't read that one. I'm gonna totally add it to the list. I'm obsessed with Audible. I think I have like
Yes,
120 titles
yes.
on my phone at the moment. All right.
Bright. So my favorite one recently is Bright Line Eating. Bright Line
Right.
Eating. Susan Pierce Thompson. She is over 20 years in recovery, many years in substance abuse recovery, was in OA for 10 years, but started this program called Bright Line Eating, which is a recovery program that I am in. And she is a neuroscientist, and
Ooh,
her book is amazing. I don't want to describe it because I'll just do a terrible job
I get it.
of like giving the message. But Bright Line Eating, if you're struggling with eating disorder or weight or any of that, she talks about the neuroscience of it. She talks about what we do, what we need to do, and it's just phenomenal.
Okay, love me some neuro. I love science. I mean, I love how science, especially brain science, I'm
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with the subconscious mind and how to change
Yes.
limiting beliefs and all those things. Because I feel like we allow into our lives what we believe we deserve, right? And if we change what we believe we deserve, like at a subconscious level, then the outside begins to change too. So I
Yeah.
love all that stuff. Okay, so that's it. That's it. Was there anything else you wanted to add to the Quit Lick books or self-improvement development books? Okay. Do you have a mantra or quote? I know there's like a lot of little 12-step sayings and stuff. Do you have any that you live by?
Um, so I have a quote tattooed on my wrist.
Oh, that's a good one.
which is to err is human, to forgive is divine. And it's an Alexander Pope quote. I'm not sure that it's an important quote. I don't know that it's my mantra. My mantra has become that you are meant to feel good and have a good time. I did not know that life was about feeling good and having a good time. I didn't know life was supposed to be enjoyable. I thought that life was, you're supposed to grind it out and then everything's supposed to be miserable and you're just supposed to grit your teeth and work as hard as you can, and you'll get blips of enjoyable, but most of it's going to be just who can work the hardest. And then at the end, you'll get a prize or whatever. You'll get, the money or this or that. And I fundamentally did not understand that the point, the goal is to feel good. I just didn't get that. Yeah. And particularly in sobriety, I think I got that part in while I was using, but not in sobriety. And so my mantra has been, I am one of those people that's chronically busy, chronically overworking, overdoing stuff. And I ask myself, like, am I enjoying this? Is this, I never used to ask myself that. If I was miserable, I just pushed through it, pushed harder, worked harder, whatever it was. And so now my mantra is kind of like, are you enjoying this? And sometimes, I'm in business school, like there's a lot of stuff that's not enjoyable. And there's a lot of homework that I do not want to do. And that I'm exhausted working full time and doing all the things that I do. A lot. But do I enjoy the content? So it's not like, well, I don't enjoy vacuuming, so I'm not going to vacuum.
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
There's a balance.
Like, right. Well, it's more like, do I enjoy what this brings me? Or am I doing it for some other reason? Because really about feeling good. Do I feel good? One of the things that I ask people to do who I sponsor and work with is to write down how they want to feel at work, not what they want to do, but how they want to feel while they're doing whatever it is they're doing. Do they want to feel excited? Do they want to feel connected to people? Do they want to feel, precise? Do they want to feel accomplished, organized? What are the feelings? How do you want to feel while you're doing your work? And back into that, because I just didn't understand for so long, which feels crazy to me now, that life was supposed to be enjoyable.
Well, it's funny because we do drugs because we, on the outside, it looks like you do drugs so that you can have fun. Right. And that's how we enjoy life, but that's not the case. It's not really, especially in addiction, it's just a lot of work. Right.
It's so much work.
And being high is, and then you don't remember it. So, I mean, did you really have fun? Who knows?
And with, one thing that with, you asked one of your guests, what do you wish you knew? What do you wish you had known? I did not know that with heroin, once you're addicted, you get sick and you get well. You don't get high, you get well.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes sense. Yeah.
So
you, after you become addicted, you're just taking drugs so that you're not sick.
Right.
Dope sick.
So now it's a dope. Now it's just an endless pursuit of stopping yourself from getting this horrendous, we've all seen movies, depictions, and let me tell you, it's brutal. And so you're just running from it. Feeling. Yeah. But I had no idea.
Ashley.
I had no idea it was like, cocaine wasn't like that.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
Cocaine stopped working, but it wasn't, so.
I mean, you get a little nosebleed. It's okay.
It stopped doing what I needed it to do, but it wasn't running away from serious, like, and like you still got something from it. And, that just goes to that the description of that is nothing even remotely fun.
Right.
Nothing fun about it.
Well, since you brought it up, what is one thing you wish you would have known when you first got sober?
I wrote this down. I think
you did your homework. Good for you.
I know. Oh, okay.
Overachiever.
I know. Sorry. Um,
I love it.
uh, that the goal in life is to feel good and have fun.
Got it. Yeah. It's so funny because I think, you know, a lot of people when they first get sober, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to stop drinking and doing drugs or smoking. I'll never have fun
Never
again.
have fun again.
And that is couldn't be further from the truth. I have so much fun in recovery. I bet you do too. You
I
seem
do.
like a fun
Well,
girl.
okay. So my 20s were killer. My
Yeah.
20s were killer.
So
Uh,
fun.
I have overbooked myself in my 30s,
Yeah.
with the twins and the work and the podcast and school. But I will come out of this. But
Yes.
my 20s, I mean, I jumped out of planes. I went to raves.
Yeah.
I,
Sober.
but yeah, so
Sober
bungee jumps.
raves.
I swam. No, not sober raves. I mean, I was sober, but not.
Right. You were
Um,
sober, but
you
they
know,
weren't. Yeah.
I went to Vegas, and we went and swam with great white sharks in Africa. I lived large
I
and
was gonna say you
big
always have
and
this
fun.
element of death, airplanes and
Oh yeah,
sharks and
my mom is like, "Do you always have to try to kill yourself?" I'm like, "I'm not trying to kill myself, mom." My poor mother. Oh God. And now I have twin boys, so it's yeah. I like excitement. I like
yeah.
fun. That's excitement is fun to me.
Yeah, a
And
little adrenaline
I'm
junkie.
always
I
too
get it.
much. I'm always too much for people, remember? So it's
Yeah.
always, but in my 20s when we weren't drinking, and I had this big group of friends, and we lived in LA, and young people in AA, and
Oh, so fun.
that that big too much intensity was so helpful because I
Yeah.
got this other group of people to do things that they, can hop in the car and go on a road trip or go do these things that, maybe they wouldn't have done, but because we were sober and because we had to find new ways to enjoy our life,
Right. Yeah.
that became an asset because I was adventurous. But yeah, so 20s were super fun. And when people
Adventurous.
talk about like not having fun in sobriety, or I'll never have fun again, I have a gazillion stories of just absolutely having a blast. And parenthood kind of changes the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. That'll throw a wrench in your game. Those little cock
Yeah,
blockers.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I get it. Oh, I love that. And then because my podcast is one day at a time, ODAT, I always like to end with, do you have like a regular self-care routine like that you do like one day? Is it like for me, it's like a one day at a time thing, and I have like a daily routine, but do you have a daily self-care routine or weekly self-care routine that helps you to stay sober?
Yeah, so I'm usually woken up like being shot out of a cannon
The kids.
by one of my kids. And I get up and I go and intentionally hug them and talk to them.
Mm.
They have a lot of energy at 6 a.m. And but I go and I talk to them, and I hug them and kiss them and give them attention. I'm a working mom, and um, they feel that. And so I spend that time with them in the morning, really just trying to be as present as anyone can be at 6 a.m. And, and then I get my coffee and do a gratitude list while they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go through um, what self-care I'm going to do in the day. So sometimes I'll do that the night before. Sometimes I'll figure out with my schedule, like, okay, what can I fit in? Can I, um, you know, get a spin class in? Can I, 20-minute swim, whatever it is, I try to figure out where I can fit that piece in, and I put it onto my calendar because nothing happens in my life that isn't on my calendar.
I
So
hear
I
you,
just put it
sister.
in
If
there.
it doesn't go on the calendar, it doesn't happen.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. What
So
about meetings? Do you have like a number of meetings that you like to go to? Are you doing online meetings? Are you doing it like, where does that fit in?
yeah, so COVID has, obviously put a real wrench in that, but I have a home group in Laguna Beach, and
Mm.
7 a.m. at the Canyon Club. And so I meet my sponsor there every weekend. Go to the seven. I've been going to that meeting, since I got sober. So a lot of those people
That's
have seen
awesome.
me. A lot of the people in there have seen me grow up in
Grow up. Yeah.
AA. And then I do an OA meeting on Fridays, an Overeaters Anonymous meeting on
Uh-huh.
Fridays. On Wednesdays, I do a mastermind group with my Bright Line Eating crew. And then Mondays, I either do another OA meeting or an online AA meeting. And sometimes I can join the 7 a.m. meeting during the week on my phone while I'm cooking breakfast or doing whatever. So that's
nice.
kind of been, I mean, that's like kind of post-COVID era schedule, but it is so important to engage and connect. And I went to my first in-person, my sponsor took 28 years, and I went to go see her, and we had the meeting at the Canyon
Nice.
Club parking lot. And I can't tell you how great it was to just, you know, see people and connect. And so however the connection, however you can make the connection is wonderful. We started a non-denominational, if you will, support group called Community, which is on lionrock.life. And it's basically an alternative to 12-step where, you know, we took out the God piece, the religious piece that people really object to. And it's free form. You can be recovering from whatever. And because we, you know, like She Recovers, we believe that people are all people are recovering from something. And so it's very, very inclusive. And so I've been helping with that and, you know, doing mentorship there. So I you know, try to do as much as I can to stay connected. For me,
service.
Of service. I find that when I'm connected, I'm automatic, like I don't have to try to be of service.
Yeah.
If I'm connected, then it happens. But my you know, type of alcoholism, whereas like my husband's not the same, requires constant monitoring.
Constant vigilance.
Constant monitoring. Yeah. I am not the person who can like lay back and take it easy with my recovery. I'm just not. I really wish I was. My husband drives me nuts. You know, he'll be, it just doesn't manifest for him.
Yeah.
And I have a deep desire to be, you know, in a gutter shooting heroin, you know, whatever. Like, I just don't know what that's, I can't tell you, you know, when I fantasize about drinking or using, it's just this like horror scene of like, and people be like, doesn't that look awful? I'm like, that looks so good. Like, are you kidding me? You know, they're looking at this totally differently.
I
right?
know. Yeah.
You know, I'm like, a gallon of vodka alone in a room with no lights, and you know, are you kidding? That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just this like totally, so my brand of alcoholism, if you will, just requires constant, because it comes out, you know, with food the reason that I go to more food meetings is because that's where my alcoholism shows up more today.
Yeah.
That's the topic I have to be talking about and vigilant, because I have alcoholic foods in my life where I treat them like alcohol, and there you go.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, in my mind, and it's interesting because there's a 12-step program for everything. So it kind of leads me to believe like it doesn't matter what the solution or the problem is, the solution's always the same. But there is so much benefit in being around people who get you're kind of crazy, like your flavor of crazy, right? There is so much benefit.
I need people. Yeah, because otherwise I'm too much. I'm too much. You know,
yeah, you've said that a few times. I'm too much, and I just feel like, you know, your vibe attracts your tribe. You know, you are not too much for everyone. You know what I mean? There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us that are too much.
But I'm with my people, right?
Yeah,
I'm with my people. But that's by going to be and being with people with my brand of crazy.
Yeah,
they get it. I can tell.
It's a new normal.
Yeah, like I can tell a meth lab story and no one bats an eye, whereas I once did that at Thanksgiving and it didn't go over so well. I was like, guys, it's hysterical. They're like, it's not that funny, actually. I'm like, no. You guys are okay. Yeah, I was in danger, blah, 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 blah. But
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. My mom's just like, I can't breathe.
I can't breathe.
But you know, I'm with when I'm with my people, you know, I'm not it's not jarring for them. So I think everybody needs that, whatever that is,
I remember like early on in recovery, I started going to, I went back to church when I had little kids, and I went on this women's retreat, and I remember,
I can picture this.
Do you already know what I'm going to say?
I'm picturing you trying
early
to
recovery. Yeah.
Oh
well, not so early, but still, like, I didn't have the perspective that I have now. And I was at this women's retreat, and it was like, I remember telling a story, and then like the quiet that fell over the room.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Where you're like,
I was like, so you guys didn't get topless at a family restaurant? Is that weird?
and it's always, for me, what's amazing is like, it's always the stories that we think are mild. We're telling the mild, like, you topless at the restaurant, at a family restaurant, that's mild, right? Like you think you're fitting in with the church crowd. Yeah. Meanwhile, you completely missed the mark.
They're all. Yeah. You did.
Right.
That was so funny.
You're thinking to yourself, like,
I know. The other thing that I think is hilarious is how people in recovery suddenly become such prudes. Because I tell this story all the time about how that if it was in a bottle, a bag, or blue jeans, I was doing it. And I think I'm super funny, right? And this girl pulls me aside after a meeting one time. She goes, "Oh my God, I was so embarrassed for you." And I was like, "Bitch, please, when did you become a virgin? Did you did your hymen grow back since you got sober?" It's like, what happened to you?
I mean,
stop it.
I don't know what drives a person to feel the need to tell you that, but
talk about waspy.
She doesn't she doesn't sound like our brand of alcohol.
No.
She's not I'll leave you with this. When I was in early sobriety, I had the brilliant idea to sell my eggs.
Oh, fun.
And
do you have other children walking the planet right now?
No, it gets better. So I filled out this application. Yeah, I have a lot of ideas. I filled out this application, and they ask you all these questions about like your lifestyle and your history, your physical, whatever. So they like how many sexual partners you've had, if you've ever used drugs. So I wrote in this application what I thought was the most Pollyanna I could think of. And I was turned down because the Pollyanna that I thought was virginal and like, only smoked weed, the person I created to be, acceptable and pure was not pure enough. I mean, I just had this, I was like, wow, I can't even,
you can't even lie about it good enough.
I can't even, I don't even know what it looks like.
You're 100 is too much? What are you talking about?
I made this. No, I don't even remember what it was, but I made it.
You're all three. I've slept with 3 people my entire life.
Yeah, I was like, this is the most I couldn't think of anything less than that. I just thought that was
that would have been like realistic, right? You're like, okay, I can't say the actual truth.
Right.
But the watered down version was still
like 3 times. Yeah. Like I was like, what? They're just like, we can't take someone with this kind of history. I'm like, this kind of history? Like it
Girl,
blew
good to me.
It blew my mind. And I realized, I was like, I will never understand at all because I can't even pretend.
I cannot wait. So you're actually going to be in my neighborhood pretty soon. And in a couple weeks, you're going to be out here. I can't wait to see you in person. And I cannot wait to swap actual stories with you. It's going to be
hilarious. It's going to be good. Real good. I can't wait. It'll be really good.
Well, listen,
thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to seeing you in person. And congratulations on all this amazing work that you were doing.
Thank you.
We're healing. We're saving the world. One slut at a time. No, I'm just kidding.
Your experience can help others.
Yeah. It takes one to know one. That's what I tell people. You spot it, you got it.
Exactly. You're like, thank God it was worth something.
I know, right? Woo, phew. Dodge that bullet.
Oh, so funny.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. You
Thank
are
you.
amazing. I adore you. Congratulations. And I can't wait I'm going to be attending your Gabby, Danny, Jodie thing. So yay.
It's going to be awesome. Oh my gosh, September
September
22nd.
22nd. I have it written down. It'll be on
Yeah,
my
yeah,
calendar so
exactly.
I don't
Okay,
forget.
just go to the written stuff.
Yeah, go to the website. Everything will be in the show notes.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Listen,
Thank you
you
so
have
much.
enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you later. Bye. Yay. Okay, we are